All right, welcome to the show. This is the 2022 Dickson County Election Podcast, and my name is Justin Spurlock. I'll be your host for this particular podcast series, which, by the way, is designed to give the listeners of Dickson County just a little more information about the candidates. I do have a radio show that I do every Saturday morning on WDKN, and also a newspaper article that I write in the Dickson Post every Wednesday. But in addition to that, I wanted to do a show where I could talk to the candidates and just give them a platform to be able to give you, the voters, just a little bit more information. And we're lucky this morning to be joined by somebody who's running for a county commission seat, and that is Mr. Larry Hillis. Larry, how are you today?
Doing well.
Well, thank you so much for coming on to the show. Before we get into the details about the office that you're running for, I'd like to talk to you just a little bit about your background. I think it's valuable to the people that are listening just to know a little bit about you and kind of who you are. So if you don't mind, take me back to the beginning, your earliest days. Where did you grow up, and what are your childhood memories, I guess?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, Justin, and of this podcast and ability to talk to the larger audience about this election in August, on August the 4th, that's coming up. I grew up on a farm. I'm a farm kid, one of the few remaining folks that grew up on a working farm and still own it today. And I have been in Dickson for about 40 years. When I was a soldier at Fort Campbell, I'm a veteran. Helicopter pilot. I met Rayanne, my wife, and she was a Dickson County employee, and so we bought some property here in the mid-1980s. We've been here ever since. And Rayanne did her full 30 years, and then with the school system, retired. She was a librarian at Charlotte. And then after I left the Army, I went full-time with the state, but I worked in Nashville in the central office for a couple of state departments, and made that daily commute on 40 for 30 years. And but I stayed in the Guard and Reserves, eventually retired in 2012 as a lieutenant colonel in an aviation branch. I'm a UH-60 and a OH-58 pilot, and had some great experiences there. Was an Iraq war veteran, got to go to Iraq in 09 and 10 and participate in that activity. And I count that as some of my proudest moments of serving in the military. My father was a World War II veteran, and I always had a soft spot in my heart for the military, and I joined when I was 19, and I retired out of the reserves when I was 59. So I hung around for 40 years, so a lot of the world. Served in Egypt and peacekeeping, and in the Iraq War in Iraq and Kuwait, and so that, anybody that's been in the military, it's a formative experience for you. The people that you work with are first class, and even though some of the activities we do and some of the operations we conduct are real tough in this. I know 9 and 10, we lost some people in the Tennessee Guard, were killed, and those are always hard things to come to grips with when you lose your comrades. But it's a dangerous world out there, as we all know. So I've been fortunate here in Dickson. I've belonged to several organizations. Been the past president of the Lions Club, still in the Lions Club. In fact, this Saturday, if you know anybody, we have a food giveaway at YMCA that the Lions Club is paying for, so I'll be up there distributing food. And I think we do that a couple times a year because the Lions have 5 charities that we do. And then American Legion VFW, and current president of the Historical Society, here's the Historical Genealogical Society, and we've got a bit Monday coming up with Steve Schaefer's farm over in Charlotte, and invite anybody for that. It's no charge or anything, and Steve will go through his being working with some of the older implements, farm implements, and blacksmithing and that type of thing. I have had the opportunity in this district, the 11th district, which I'm running in this year. I was elected back in the early 90s from this district and sat on the school board for 4 years. Did have that opportunity and very much enjoyed it. David Peeler was my director of schools in those days, and Mr. Peeler's passed away now, but he was a fine individual from White Bluff. And my wife, after she retired, she even spent some time on the school board. And then I was lucky to get appointed to the County Planning Commission, and I have about 7 years working in Charlotte as a member of the County Planning Commission. Again, the county planning would encompass all those areas outside the incorporated areas of the cities, the municipalities. So I have some great experiences there, and still very much interested. I think this year, as I've talked to people about running in this race, obviously it's about growth in Dixon. It's about taxes. And you and I spoke before we started, there's going to be some shock on folks' face in a few years because land prices have gone through the roof. And when we do reappraisals, people are going to see that. And so jobs, growth, those issues are not particular centric to Dixon. I mean, Middle Tennessee's growing. We're going to add, according to the census folks, maybe 1 million people more coming. We're about 8,000 kids now in Dixon County. I heard Dr. Weeks. I've been going to the planning sessions and actual county commission sessions for the last 3 or 4 months over in Charlotte. And we're hanging around 8,000 kids. We're really not growing, but the folks are coming into us are the maybe 40, 50-year-olds, and they're not bringing children because usually each housing permit, you sort of look for about 1.5 kid, but we're not looking for that because it's the older folks coming in now from wherever out west or up north, but Dixon's changing, and Dixon's changing in relation to the whole Middle Tennessee is changing. So I've been here about 40 years. I have a college degree from MTSU, Master's of Public Administration there. Worked in mainly real estate and grants with TDEC, an Environment Conservation Department, and had statewide responsibility there. And I usually had around $25 million every year that we worked up and gave out on grants, and then the state purchased property, and I was involved in that team that put that together. And always been interested in civic affairs. Of course, retired state employee for 30 years. Even in the military, dealing with, spent 10 active over 3 different tours, and then was able to retire as out of the reserves. So I've always been interested in public affairs. I follow Congress. That's an interesting organization to follow these days. And I keep up with the legislature. When the legislature here recently, last 3 or 4 years, you can listen to the hearings, and you can see the agendas and all that, where you don't have to go down and get that information. You can sit here at your leisure in Dixon and watch that information. So I do follow some things there at the state level, and know we got some new school funding coming up. BP, when I came in 92, 30 years ago, BP was brand new with Ned McWhorter, and no one ever understood it. And but we got about $1 million more a year in that time frame, and I saw how that was dispensed, and had some comments there that we talked about internally. And so there's some more money possibly coming down to Dixon because of the way that the state is going to divvy out the money in education. As you know, you're an educator. About 85% of the money is state money, and those that give the money make the rules. And then we have about $5 million on a Title I Fed, with your special ed, et cetera. And then the local supplements, coming through the sales tax. And then we have still, started in the 80s, we pay a little extra for a car tag out here because we have a wheel tax in Dixon, bringing money into education. So, the county, we'll talk about that a little bit more if you want to. The county is divided up. We have the county commission, and then we have the constitutional officers. It's not like the city,
right,
where the city name their police chief, they name whoever. No, these are elected by the people. These are independent offices. The sheriff or county court clerk, circuit court clerk, juvenile court clerk, general sessions clerk, all those are elected by the people. And of course, they run their money through the county commission. So the county commission basically sets like a corporate board of directors. And you hear their request for money is the mayor puts together a budget. He, whatever the sheriff thinks he needs or what improvements he needs to see, the same go for the roads. This be the first year we're not going to elect a road engineer. They took that off the ballot about 3 years ago, so that's an appointed position now. But most of the offices in the courthouse, the old annex over there, they're independently elected people, and they come up with their budget, and all that goes through So it's a democracy's not easy. It's got a lot of checks and balances, and if it was easy, we would make it harder for whatever reason. But I mean, you got a lot of independent actors, and big thing is just work together, try to get the efficiencies, stay up with the times, with technology, and that type of thing. But I mean, Dixon's in a growth period. We're just a hair under 55,000 now. It's like 54.3 was our last census. In growth and jobs, we've got to have jobs. We've got to do this vocational, which Governor Lee's really into, because folks graduating high school here, you got to get a job. Very few people are going to start their own businesses. So you're going to work for somebody. So you, whatever that field of work that you're interested in, be it construction, be it welding, be it being a nurse, being a licensed practical nurse or LPN or RN, need to encourage them to get that, and hopefully they can stay here in Dixon. Talking about successive families would stay here in Dixon. So it's a dynamic time to be in government, both state and, of course, the federal government's off on the other side of the world.
Well, let me take you back to talking about, you were doing a really good job of explaining sort of what the county commission does, and that's what you're running for. You're running. Why don't we talk just specifically a little bit about this particular seat, because you're running for a seat on the county commission, and some people that are listening may not really know what the county commission is, and you did a good job of sort of summarizing it, but maybe just explain what some of your responsibilities would be if you were to win this office, and kind of what a county commissioner does.
Well, the county commission is the elective body, not the it is elected, but it's the legislative body of the county, and they pass the resolutions. There's sort of like a corporate board of directors. The individual offices come in, the mayor produces a budget, and then the commission has to agree to it, just like a corporate board. We're not the operators. We're not there Monday through Friday to tell you what to do or anything like that. There's the corporate board. So we have 12. When I moved to Dixon 40 years ago, we had 24. And reading Dr. Corley's book, which I think you've read, and we did a little program here a couple months ago with Robert E. Corley Jr., there was 36. So we've went from 36, 24 down to 12. And there's 12 districts, and it's divided up, Baker versus Carr, one man, one vote. So it's done. In the 11th district stayed pretty steady for years. I ran in the 11th district several years ago. Wife ran in the district just a few years ago. We went in and took a little bit of 47 out of Burns, not very much, and then went across Wesley Heights. That used to be in the 12th. Just because we didn't, the district now is basically where the office acreage was, where the old John Luther restaurant was.
Yeah, East Hills restaurant.
East Hills, and it goes all the way down to 96, and then they've added Wesley Heights, and then they went on down 70 across from Greystone, and added a couple of those streets going off to the right there, just to get the numbers up, because you have to have within about 8-10% variation among the 10 districts, and most of the new bodies coming now are coming out of here at in the 6th and 12th, and in the 7th going out towards 46 towards Hickman County.
That's and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I was wanting you to kind of explain to the people where exactly District 11 is, because that's one big thing that I hear when I talk to the voters. They'll say, want to know more about the candidates, and I'll say, well, what district are you in? They'll say, I'm not really sure. So could you already kind of explained it, but just kind of it's sort of part of Dixon, and then kind of goes into Burns, if I'm not mistaken.
A little piece of Burns, they just got added this last time where they went across the railroad. Mm-hmm. We used to go down Blue Road, and to get some bodies in. They went across there at the Colesburg Church of Christ and went down towards the trash transfer point down there. Now, it doesn't go all the way down there. It ends like Bond Mead, whatever the road right before that.
Okay.
And then it's got nothing in around the Burns City. All that's in another district. And so... And then they added Wesley Heights and a few others in. But it's the smallest of the 12, which is great if you go and get around it. I sort of live in the middle of it on Oakland Eastwood subdivision. So the whole district was within 2 miles of my house, not like out here in some of these rural districts where you've got... a big chunk of the county out in Tennessee City or up in Van Leer or over in where you've got a lot of land and a lot of distance, and so that's and most people don't know the districts. They don't. We're in a new congressional district now. Most people will not know that, and we went from the 5th to the 7th. Most people in the 11th district don't know who their county commissioner is, and probably don't know who the judge is. One of the things about August, before you get down to the county general, we're going to have about 20 judges to vote on, and you won't know any of them. The Supreme Court, the appellate judges, then in our judicial district here, the 23rd, all the judges are unopposed. Judge Wolf, Judge Mash, Lockard Mash, and Judge Wallace. DA's unopposed. The new public defender coming in, Mitchell, he's unopposed. So, I'd encourage people to go out and vote on August the 4th, but I'm thinking we got 32,000 registered voters in Dixon, and we might push it to get 10 of them out. So that means 2/3 of somebody that's went ahead and registered might not come. Hope that's not true, but might not be voting. So because we don't have a governor's race, so you see those big TV races that we see on there, and that drives interest. Because everybody has these little cute TV ads, and people are aware of it, and then you're down ballot. So I would imagine the county commission will be the 25th or 27th, and after the judges go first. Then you got on the partisan, the Republican Democrat, but then you get to the general election, county general election, which the county commission's in. You got all the courthouse. Nobody's got opposition except Mayor Ryle's got an opponent. And I believe everybody else is unopposed. And even on the county commission, out of 12 seats, 4 are unopposed. Mm-hmm. Only 8 have opposition. So they just, they have a lot of folks there driving the issues for folks to come out. So it's going to be probably a very anemic voting turnout in August. Wish it wasn't so. Wish everybody would come out and express their opinion, but that's just not the way it works.
Well, one thing I decided to, one of the reasons why I decided to do this show was to give the voters some more information, but I thought kind of in turn, when they get more information and they're more aware of who's running and they get a chance to listen to you talk and learn a little bit about you, they may be more apt to go to the polls. And that's one thing that I would really like to see around here is more than just, I guess about 20% of the population is actually going out and voting maybe. I'm doing rough math in my head, but it's not a big number.
No, it's not. And people are busy with lives, so you can't browbeat the folks because they're raising families, they're making a living, they're raising children, and a lot of times in government, and I worked state for 30 years and also was involved here for 12 years in county government, both on the school board and on the county commission, is usually the ones that make it go out of their way to come to see you. They've got an issue. Something's happened at their property or something has happened with their kid at school, and they're wanting redress. And but for the vast bulk of folks, they don't have the dog in the fight, so to speak, and they do get excited with presidential races, which we'll have another one in 24, and that'll draw them. I think we drew 22,000 voters in November of 2022, and we may draw 10 in August. That's countywide. So and we got 32,000 registered voters. So. I wish people would take more interest. I know as a candidate and working, I encourage people to vote, those that I see, and I go to a lot of these events where the other candidates are holding events, but those are generally people connected with that candidate, or they're the folks like me. They're just very interested, and I have the time and the interest that I'll go out of my way to go to a campaign kickoff event because that's something that I'm interested in, and I realize that that's not a trait shared with many. So but we live in the greatest country on the planet. I was in the military. I saw some pretty bad places, and what our forefathers and mothers have given us here has been a gift. And democracy is messy and as disconnected as it is the best on the planet. And so I think hopefully folks that would get involved and become, talk to the candidates. All candidates are, especially this time of year when they're running, they're pretty easy to get in touch with. They're pretty quick to call you back.
Yeah,
and
most anyway.
Yeah. If sometimes, some of them work, some of them have jobs. Now I'm retired, so I can do this as much as I want, right? Which certainly if I hold myself out and fortunate enough to win, then I'm going to be very attuned to anybody that wants to talk to me personally, that hopefully I can answer their question, or if I don't know the question, get the answer to them, and then try to bring them into perspective of other factors that they might not be aware of as to why something is happening or why something didn't happen, that type of thing. And it's an educational process, and be more than happy to participate in that and continue on. I think my wife is not as politically motivated as I am, but I mean, I've done this for decades now, attending meetings when candidates come to town, running for governor, U.S. senator, congressman, and I like to go and see the folks, and hear their elevator speech, as you call it, and get to meet them, know a little bit about them, and we have some great candidates both locally and also running for Congress and legislature and the state legislature, and we're very fortunate that these folks have stepped up to run.
Absolutely. And that kind of leads me to my next question, which is, why did you decide to run? What was there any specific thing that motivated you to run? And why this particular office at this particular time?
Well, primarily the incumbent retired, and so it's an open seat. Prior to, Mrs. Linda Hayes has been pretty much there for about 30 some odd years. She had a couple of years that she wasn't there. Her husband was there before. So many of the county commissioners, there's no term limits in Dixon, in the city, or some of our council or mayor here. The Dixon city mayor has been mayor for 30 years. So when you have an opportunity, when an incumbent is stepping aside, then you need to pay attention to that. And if you're interested, now I'm interested in the matters, the events. I'm interested in county government. I'm interested in keeping taxes low, efficiency. So those things are just natural wheelhouses for me. And I've got decades of looking at it. I've just, in preparation for this race, I've went back like the last 6 comptroller audits, and those are 211-page documents when they do an audit, which they do every year. And then we'll have one on 30 June, the closeout, and it'll be available on the fiscal year 2022. That'll be available around Christmas time, and so a lot of information there. And I attend some meetings here. We've had Darrell James has had some meetings on economic development at the Clement, and just show up for those. When we had Del Tile, I got very interested in that when they came up from Dalton, Georgia, and built out here. And I'm interested in recruiting and being a part of the team to say, yes, let's go out here. Not only that, but take care of some of the folks I was mentioned with Speaker Sexton Friday here in Dixon, and he stated they were going to look at some F&Es, and that's facility taxes that business have to pay. and they're going to give some credits, for people that are already in business. So they wouldn't have to pay as much into the state, and then that might give them a chance to some money to hire somebody different, or to do some improvements, or to take care of some machinery that they have. So definitely those that are here doing business in Dixon, we want them to stay, we want them to prosper, and do what we can at the local level. But most of that is going to be at the state level. But as a county commissioner, I have no problems to go down and lobby our legislators, or to go in and talk to the speaker, or even to the governor if I had a particular issue, and try to get an appointment and be prepared to go in. I had that issue with Speaker Sexton on Friday, and he understood what I was always talking about, growth, and how that's impacting not only Dixon but all Middle Tennessee. And he kept coming back, well, bring me solutions, bring me ideas, So he threw it right back at me, So if elected commissioner, I would get involved. Obviously, reach out to get more folks assisting and helping, and then we would go down and maybe try to enact some legislation, or at least maybe go down and talk about some legislation that we might be interested in, that type of thing. And I have the time and the interest, and spent 30 years in Nashville, spent thousands of hours walking the hall of Legislative Plaza. So it's not a new endeavor for me, and I got a lot out of that, and I think I did some good when I was in state service. So.
Well, tell me, and you've kind of already hit on this, what would make you qualified as far as maybe your background, your personality, and characteristics? And I would say definitely some of the roles that you've had in the past, and some of the things that you've done in the community, as well as, your desire to do the research and to read. And that's one of my biggest things that I always tell candidates is, I really want, whoever's elected to represent me to just, make sure that you read everything and you do the research, because I've learned a lot of time that's the hardest thing to do, is just to sit down and read it and understand it and apply it.
I'm fortunate that even today, in my current life, since I'm retired, I'll probably spend a couple of hours a day. I'm on a lot of websites talking about legislation, talking about the economy. I'm on the Fed website down in Atlanta, and we, for their raising interest rates, and then if Chairman Powell on the Fed board is making, I'll listen to that, if he's making some announcement from Washington, D.C. and the Feds. So, number one, I have interest, and I enjoy it, and I've done it so long that it's not Latin or Greek to me. I sort of understand. I can read the budgets, and I can read the audits, the state audits, because when I was on the school board, I got them all the time for the school board. And when I was in state government, I dealt with internal audit and also the comptroller's audits. So I've got decades of experience dealing into the hundreds of millions of dollars over 30 years, and was a decision maker on some areas, and took those roles very, very seriously. But you can't just sit back at the county commission and they're going to spoon feed you. No, that ain't going to happen. When this last measure moved through on the redoing the educational funding, I asked a couple members of the legislature. This was late as mid-February, but see, Governor Lee embargoed all that. He wouldn't let any infos out. And so this was like 6 weeks before they was going to vote on it, and they didn't have a clue. And I remember asking one when they did the Ford deal, and we gave $500 million. And I said, "Where's the 500 at? Where's the 500 million fund balance?" Well, they didn't know, And so, it's hard to know everything, because a lot of folks piece the information out to you. They just give you enough. But I think I've been around enough and sort of understand some of the motivations. And I remember when I was on the school board, Mr. Peeler would give us some heads up on something. Judge Phil was our county mayor back in those days, and we were always waiting to that, how much money a penny on the sales on the property tax was going to bring in, and we would never get that until about June. And then Mr. Peter might hear a little something. Then he said, "I can give you maybe where we're headed, but it's embargoed. You can't talk about it." And meaning that's a work product, and there's a lot of moving parts, and what I may be telling you may change, and But I think that's probably one of my strong suits. I'm very interested in that, and I will definitely not only read the material, is that I would go and meet folks in their offices in Nashville, or to find out other facets or more in depth, or if they had a meeting that I could go to, and I would read their and just stay up with it, and hopefully become more knowledgeable in how things are working. Because again, I think it's about jobs. I think it's about livability here in Dixon, in terms of keeping our character as a rural county. I think it's about growth or infrastructure, especially in the county commission, because all the county roads are done by the county commission. Here in the city, you have street departments, but just keeping that steady beat going forward, and you just can't rest on your laurels. Probably a county commissioner needs to be reading something 2 to 3 hours every day, or making a phone call, or somebody calls them, inquiring and trying to figure out what's happening different in another county that might apply here, best practices. Because I know reading the comptroller's reports for Dixon, one of the things they keep pounding on is checks and balances, and that you can never get that at 100%, but you always want to improve on it, and if you've got some things that the auditor thinks can be done a little different, work with them. See if they can. You've got to compromise. If you have issues, talk to the auditor. And Dixon's got some pretty good audits out there. The county, Dixon County, and but we got $80 million in debt, and we bring in $144 million. I just looked at those last night during this last fiscal year. And of course, a lot of that debt was with schools, and we just saw that school report come out a couple weeks ago. We're talking about some of these older schools in Charlotte Middle and William James, and of course that's going to be up to the school board what's going to take place. But our student population is sort of flatlined at around 8,000. We're not having a bunch of new children in, and of course the school board runs the schools, and of course they kowtow to the state, because the state's the big gorilla there, and they're the money. They sets your salary. You've got a minimum salary the state sets. The county don't set it. Then they may do a supplement for you, but the state, those that pay the bills make the rules, that type of thing. And I'd be more than happy, if elected, to engage with the school board here, how we can help them. I know when I was on the school board, there's always contention between school board and county commission. I don't know why it is, but it's just in the water. And I think probably a little contention now, but some of that's probably healthy. But I know several members of the Board of Education, and I'd be willing to go to their meeting and hear if I hear their side or their plans. And but in the end, they're going to decide what happens with schools and where the school's going to get built, and the county will finance it, because everything comes back through the county for the bonding or the borrowing of money, and so. You just got to be engaged and I think my personality is such that I'll listen, and I don't come in predetermined, and I'm willing to say I'm wrong if I've missed something or make a misdiagnosis on some figures, and somebody points it out to me. I'll readily accept, well, I didn't think about that, and I'll go back. And I would just like that opportunity to, in this next 4 years to serve, and it'll be up to the voters, because I do have an opponent, and it'll be up to the voters on August the 4th. We start early voting on the 15th, I believe, Friday.
I think that's right.
And it runs through the 30th, I believe. And then early voting, and come on out and vote, because I don't know, in the 11th district, maybe 600 votes. I won't be out of 35 plus 100. There won't be a lot. So your vote will be felt and will be needed.
Let's talk a little bit about your platform, maybe some of the more political, some of the political issues that you may be a little more interested in. This is usually the point in the conversation where I ask, what's your most important political issue? But also, you can kind of touch on anything. If you were to, be lucky enough to for the voters to put you in that seat, what's something that you would focus on?
Well, I probably already mentioned some of it here: growth, and rezoning. That sitting on the planning commission, that's really your last time. Now, if folks are out here doing what they're every inch of Dixon County zoned. We did that with Doug Jackson back with the Tanya Tucker landfill back in the 80s. The Tanya Tucker law was done where she was going to do a landfill suspected over in Humphreys County. So that's where the state or the counties got involved in the rural parts. And you want to have, because we're a free society, we're a capitalist society, we're private property society. So, but and want to give as much leeway, wanting everybody to do what they want to do with their property. But anybody that wants to do something, if the land's already zoned for it, go for it. But usually, I never saw in a county where people were making their, if you were zoned residential R1 and I'm going to be A1, I'm going to take it back. Well, that's less uses for that piece of property. So when you get ready to sell it, it's going to be A1, not R1, right? So you're not going to lose money. So people are always pushing forward to get it zoned. And we did real well. We had Donnie Thiel was our zoning guy in Charlotte. He's retired now. But, get out and talk to your neighbors. And state, usually anything above 5 acres, you can do whatever you want to anyway. And I know the county has just recently brought that down to about 3 acres. You may be more aware of that. But anytime you make changes like that versus what you had in effect for 20 or 30 years, that has impact, And zoning, growth, you either run growth or growth runs you. And growth is going to happen. It is like we were talking earlier. There's just too many factors, too many players, the realtors, the bankers, the title attorneys, the home builders that are pushing more and more and more, build, flip land, because that's how they make a living. And those are fine, honorable professions. So that would be one of the issues. Also, it's a never-ending quest to be proficient and effective at what you do. Don't think just because you got it right last year and you got some software updates that everything's just going to take care of itself. Lean into that and know what they're doing in Hickman County, know what they're doing in Montgomery County, and talks about efficiency and just continue to do that. And using technology. One of the things here, we're in a process or an era right now, we're seeing 6-7% inflation. So the next few years, we're going to be hit hard, both the city, both the state, and the county, with increased demand for labor. It's going to, your employees are going to want money, more money, 3.5. Of course, now, some of the rates are up, like gasoline and everything, 7 or 8%. So that's going to, and with the COVID and what happened and all the stimulus money came and those supply and demand, you got a lot of more dollars floating around out there, and you have a set number of resources. So that becomes more just like land. We have a lot of people come in that if they can borrow money at 3%, they're not so much worried about 30 years. It's like, can I make this monthly payment next month? And that's the way they buy a house. And I hope we don't go into a recession, because I'm old enough. I remember, the late 70s. I remember 20% on CDs. I remember house loans, 12, 15% for a house loan. I hope we don't see that, because young folks that are starting out or that move jobs from one area to another, they need to be able to buy houses and to have that type of activity. But I think we're in for 3 or 4 more years. I hope we don't go into a recession. I understand that there are going to be a couple of rate increases before now and Christmas. I think you may tell me what's the current 5% on a home loan.
Yeah, about. It
and that was about
varies,
3.5 last fall, and those numbers knock some people out. And how much you have to come up with your down payment, and then what the lender's going to do. And those are big. So I think livability, the taxes, growth, being as efficient. I'm a conservative, so I want government to be as small as possible to render the services the folks, because there's I knew this in state government, there's enormous amount of requests, but in the end there's only so much resources. Now the federal government hasn't learned that lesson. They just continue printing money. But for most people in your private life and with the county and with the state Tennessee's very physically well managed. There's only so many resources. Then you got to make the tough decisions at the state level, with education or with corrections or with economic development, and they have to make those calls through the governor's office in conjunction with the legislature. And so that's one of the big things I'd like to be able to be a part of, a discussion of, and not to be a lone ranger here, but to work with others and develop a consensus and listen to other people's attitudes and opinions about it.
There's one thing I wanted to ask you a little bit more about that you said that I just kind of found, very interesting. You mentioned about the schools and how the population is kind of stagnant. It just hasn't, the school population hasn't gone up, even though the county population's gone up. We've built more houses, we've expanded, but the school system, as far as the number of students, doesn't really seem to be growing. And one of the things that I hear a lot from people is I'll have, folks come up to me and say, teachers, they're just, they don't get the respect they deserve. They ought to be paid more money and things like that. And I've heard, different people, kind of call for changing teacher salaries, but and some people have mentioned to me, they're like, who sets that? Is that the school board? Is that the county commission? So I was wondering if you could maybe just real quickly, because you seem to have kind of a unique perspective as somebody who's kind of been on both sides of the commission and the school board with your wife and everything. Could you kind of explain just the dynamic between the county commission and the school board and kind of who does what and how they work together?
Well, who sets the salary on school teachers? The base is set by the state. And it's according to your education and, more degrees you got, the more money you get. And then they set usually a floor. And there's 142 local educational authorities in Tennessee. It means 142 school districts. And some places like Brentwood and Franklin, a lot of money there. So they can offer more, but they're paying it out of local coffers from local resources. Where more of the rural counties, like here in Dixon, we don't have that access to the money. And so we're basically, there's some supplements that are given that are not funded through the state, but we're pretty much driven by what the state and that's also in the county. We don't determine what the county mayor is paid. That's done by the state. What the circuit court clerk's paid, what your circuit judges are paid, what your DA's paid, all that's done. Those are state employees. Well, the county mayor's not, he's a county employee. But the state legislature's preempted all that, and they get, on your population in the county, if you're a county of 50 to 60,000, the mayor makes this, down to the penny, and if you're over 75,000, if you're under 25, you make another bout. So one of the things when I was on the school board, and Mr. Peeler, who was my director of school, did a good job on, what positions do we carry in the school system that are not state funded? Because there will be some here that has gotten added for various reasons, but they're not in the state minimum. And the states, like Rand was the librarian at Charlotte. You got a middle school with 350 people. Guess who tells you how many books you have to have in the library? There's a number, and the state tells you. You got to have you got to have 3 books per kid, because the state's paying 85% of education. And so that the dynamic is that the school board has basically a policy making decision. They're policy people, and working with their director of schools, but then the money, if they raise money for schools, that has to go to the county commission, because they're the ones that are going to go out and finance it. They're going to go out and do the debt servicing. They're going to go out and borrow the money, or they're going to go out and do the bonding. And so that comes through the county, and you get the squabbles during my era there, is that there'll be somebody on the county commission that won't like. I had a commissioner in the north part of the county. One of his constituents wasn't getting a bus down a long driveway, and the bus guy at that time, Jesse Roberts, was director of transportation. And he just says, I've got some rules, and that's too far around. I can't go down there and turn my bus around. I'm in the yard, the whole 9 yards. And of course, the parent didn't want the little child to walk up to where you get picked up on the road. And we had a meeting at the county office over that, that one issue. And in the end, we just wasn't able to accommodate that. Now, obviously, if the child was handicapped or had some mobility issues with the Americans with Disability Act, they would probably have been a special ed bus that we went down there and picked, of course, a lot smaller buses. But there's just some of it's natural, some of it's good, some of it does get a little bit personal. And it goes on right now. I think 2 years ago, I believe it was 2 years ago, the county wanted a separate audit of the schools, So those things go on. You see some numbers, explanation is given, and you say, well, what's a second opinion? What's a third opinion here? That type of thing. But we do have, is what I've looked over in the last several months, we do have good comptroller comes in, and comptroller here in Tennessee, they don't call many shots. They call it right down the middle, And if you're doing something they don't like, comptroller, the treasurer, they'll tell you. And we still work together. I think if I got on the commission, I would go to an occasional school board meeting. I would seek out the school board members that are currently there, or those that will be elected, because I think there's 2 of them retiring this year, maybe, on the school board.
I know at least one.
One is retiring. Okay, is that Josh Evans? Is over in what their name is? I think they're over in White Bluff. They've got a competitive race there, and but. To work with them and work with our current director, Dr. Weeks, and try to get an understanding about where they're coming from, and then work with the State Department. And the big thing coming down starts next fiscal year would be this new school funding, and I'm afraid the counties are going to be in there for some obligation. They always talk maintenance of effort, and once you bite into something, then the state's not going to let you roll the dollars back. And I can almost guarantee you there's not really, maybe Dr. Weeks does, there's not really a good feel on what this is going to be next June. And even Speaker Sexton, who I had the opportunity to talk to last week, he said we might have to change some next spring, meaning that they've implemented the law, but as they've done more thorough thinking through it, they may have to tweak a thing or two. And then I think right now he was saying, of course, Memphis, Shelby County, and Davidson County is going to lose money. And, of course, they're screaming foul. And so we'll just have to see how that plays out at a state level. But here at Dixon, we'll probably get an increase here in Dixon. And that's in a general comments, I think, from Dr. Weeks's staff.
Well, that's all very interesting, Larry, and I really appreciate you coming in here. You've been very open with me and answered, all of my questions, and I really appreciate that. It's guys like you coming in and giving us the information that makes the show happen. And honestly, if you wouldn't come on the show, we wouldn't really have much legitimacy. So I appreciate guys like you coming in and answering some questions for the people. We're almost out of time here because I just found out that I have to keep this to under an hour, or it won't upload on my on my computer under certain programs. So, but I got a few things I want to ask you on the way out here. Number one, I like to ask the candidates just to, I'm real big on elevator pitches. I had a past employer who had us kind of work on those and kind of perfect them, and I just thought they were cool. That you could, and the idea of an elevator pitch, for anybody who doesn't know, is just, if you were to meet somebody in an elevator and you only had about 60 seconds to talk to them about something, how could you concise that down and explain to them in a very short amount of time, something that you're trying to convey. So with you running for office, if you were to run into somebody down here on Main Street, and they were to ask you and say, "Hey, Larry, I heard you're running for office in the County Commission, District 11. Why should I vote for you?" What would you tell that person?
Well, as I've mentioned here a few times already, I would talk to him about having smart growth, being involved in that process, keeping county government as accountable and as transparent as can be, and also as small because I'm not for expansive government, and also as a conservative to hit that number where we're doing the things that need to be done for the smallest amount of dollar, because I think people that earn their money, they need to keep control of their money and spend it as they need, as they see fit for their family or for their jobs or for their careers or for their leisure if they want to go to the beach or something. And so I would be diligent on those. I think I'll have the time and the ability and the interest to do the study. I have a lot of experience, which I think would give me some gravitas going to Nashville talking. I know the speaker. I know of the governor. I mean, he knows of me. But, I mean, some of these folks, I wouldn't be down there knocking the door a lot. But if I had something to propose and had other people working with me, I think we could open some doors and at least get listened to and maybe not change the direction of things. And Dixon's a great place. I think everything I would do would be on that hubris of that do what's best for Dickson County and do what's best for maintaining a lifestyle as long as we can here. It's going to be a lot different with 1 million more folks coming in Middle Tennessee in another 20 years. But everybody I bump into pretty much likes it here. They like the lifestyle. They like, living quick into Nashville, 45 minutes, go and see all your concerts, Garth Brooks, all that stuff. It's not very tight and it's not very far away. Mm-hmm. And yet you can come back and have this small town feel. So hopefully if I get the opportunity to be on the commission, those would be some things to keep Dixon moving forward. And just to get the efficiencies and continue on with that, keep his taxes as low, be transparent, and have no tolerance for favoritism or any kind of insider deals. We haven't really had that in Dixon, but in some counties you have some issues, where you have a clique. And I don't think we have that in Dixon. Now, there's other areas around that might apply, but be open to change, be open to see new faces, and to treat people cordially, and hopefully come to a mutual agreement. But if you have to disagree, you disagree, but do that respectfully, and always treat people, all people, as God intended it. They're a fellow creature and they're a fellow man, so we treat them with courtesy and respect.
We've gone over quite a few topics today. If somebody was listening and maybe they had a question in their head that they would like to ask you based on the interview that we've had today, is there a way that people could contact you? Is there maybe a phone number, email, social media accounts that you have? How would somebody learn more about Larry?
Well, I've got the same landline that I've had for 35 years. I hope to continue that. It's 615-446-1619. I don't know if there's white pages now. I think there is some, not yellow pages anymore. But if you just Google Larry Hillis, Dixon, Tennessee, that's going to come right up. And like I say, it's been the same number forever. Good thing about I'll meet you for a cup of coffee. If you want to know a specific thing, we can go to Duncan's or down here at House Blend. And if you got an issue at a property site, I'd be more than happy to come out and see what you're talking about, that type of thing. So I'm very open and not a very shy guy, and enjoy people, enjoy being around people, enjoy listening to people. And we all live in this communities together. We want to get along and to be respectful of people. And so just give me a call or 228 Old Columbia Road. Just drop by and knock on the door. Most often I'm there, and we can engage in whatever. And I think probably the Post will run articles because they'll come out with questions. That'll probably be next month. I know Kenneth Forte is going to have something at the Greer Building at the fairgrounds. That'd be a mass gathering, probably 20 candidates there. I anticipate being there unless something comes up. And I'm around at a lot of these. I don't have my T-shirt yet, but I'll usually wear an Army hat or something, and I've been here 40 years. So if you talk to 7 or 8 people, somebody, well, you've seen Larry Hillis? Yeah, that's the big guy over here, the 6'3" guy over here in the corner, and I'm always happy to meet people and talk to people.
One last time, will you tell everybody the exact office that you're running for? Tell them who's available or who's eligible to vote for that particular office, and then when the dates are.
Okay, the office I'm running for is the Dickson County Commission, and is for the 11th District. And anybody that's registered in that district, and if they're having any questions, they can call the election office or just look at your card. We have some new 11th District folks that might not have a new card, those in Burns, but most of the district, 85% of it has been the 11th District for decades. Just look on your card, you're in 11th District, or call up, I think you got a site on Charlotte now, you can just put your address in, they'll tell you who your state rep is, state senator is, et cetera, et cetera. And, register. If you're not registered, I think until the 5th, July the 5th, you could register to then and come out and vote and we're electing 15 judges, and we're electing everybody at the courthouse except the assessor of property, Miss Jenny Heath Martin, and all the county commissions up, half the school board's up. We have a brand new congressman, Mark Green. He's around, so come out and meet these folks. Kerry Roberts running for state senate. He's running for election. Of course, they have a very competitive district in the 69th, which is half of Dixon, all of Hickman and Lewis, with 4 nice candidates there, great candidates. And come out and meet them, talk to them. If you don't know them, introduce yourself. And same way with Mary Littleton over in the eastern part of the county. But get to know these folks. I mean, they're not having horns or anything like that. They're nice people, and they've stepped forward to be in politics or in government service, and I know just about all of them, and they're very approachable and very agreeable. When you meet them, they'll listen to you. Hopefully, they'll educate you on some things, or you can educate them on some things, but just be engaged. The biggest thing is apathy, just staying at home. That's not going to cut it. You need, as you can, to just be engaged, meet people. Come and meet the governor when he's in town, or the senator. You don't need to know everything that they got going on, but just see them in person and see that they're human just like we are, and they're trying. You may not agree with everything they're doing, but they're human beings, and get to know them as best you can.
Thank you so much for coming on the show again. I truly appreciate it. It's been a great conversation this morning. Good luck with your campaign. And thank you to all the listeners who have tuned in to these shows. If you were running for an office here in Dickson County and you'd like to be on this show, I'll allow anybody that wants to be on is invited. All you have to do is just get a hold of me, and we need to set up a time and a place. But you can do that by reaching out on social media. Send me a message there, or you can email me at coachspurlock@gmail.com, and we'll be glad to work that out for you. Again, thanks to everybody for listening.